let them know we'll be just starting in just a second before we build.
So we'll be getting started here in just a second. Welcome to the Brasel broadcast. Hey everybody, welcome to our second broadcast for the Brasel Real Estate Group. We are sorry that we missed you last week with Facebook outage. We were obviously out. Today we're going to start talking about the market. We're going to have a segment we're talking about market mayhem. So what's going on in the market? So the other day, Fox 4 was talking about that they thought the market here was turning into a buyer's market. So I'm just curious what our thoughts are on that. Today I have Tracy, Alicia, and Mark, who are going to be my answers for the day. So Alicia, what do you think is going on in our market?
Well, our market is a little bit slower when it changes as opposed to the coastal markets. So there it may be becoming a bit more of a buyer's market, but here it is definitely still a very strong seller's market. So at the moment, we have 2.2 months of supplies of homes on the market. So what that means is if no houses were to be listed from today on, it would take 2.2 months to sell every available home on the market, which is definitely a seller's market.
So Tracy, when it's a buyer's market, what do you see different with your buyers when you're going under contract? If it was truly going to be a buyer's market right now, what would you be doing different?
Oh, I guess I would be talking to them about that they would be able to get offer less for the house, definitely get their closing costs. Right now, to get closing costs, you have to be offering full price or above full price if it's multiple offers.
Right, absolutely. I had a listing go under contract recently, and there was just no way we were going to be willing to pay $5,000 in closing costs, and we got an above offer. So yeah, I would definitely say on that trend, it's definitely still a pretty strong seller's market out there. So as a buyer, be prepared. You know, it's not one of those things where you can negotiate a big price change. So we always want to keep you up to date, and we'll let you know when it changes into that buyer's market for sure. Are you guys seeing any trends like in your showings? Are you seeing an increase in showings on listings or on the buy side? Mark, what have you been doing this week?
Yeah, I've been seeing a lot of the stuff that I've been showing is still going under contract really fast. So I've just been trying to coach my buyers and let's not rush into anything irresponsibly, but if you find something you like, let's go ahead and make sure that we put in a solid offer quickly. That way, it's a better chance of you winning that, because lots of things are still getting multiple offers. The last listing that I had, it sold in 3 days for $8,000 over asking price with 9 offers. So
excellent.
But with the market, for it to be a seller's market, we have to have at least 6 months worth of inventory, and we're not even half there.
Yeah, we're not even close to that yet. So those stats mean a whole lot in what we're watching as agents. What about open houses? How's everybody been doing in open houses? Are you seeing a lot of traffic? I know on my listing this last week, I had tons of traffic with open houses. It seems like people are finally kind of getting out of those winter blues and kind of starting to take a turn again. Alicia?
Yeah, we had a really good open house turnout 2 weekends ago. We didn't do one last weekend. I was very impressed. About 14 families through on our open house in Kansas City.
Awesome. Mm-hmm. So our next topic is a topic that we're going to start doing. It's called What the Heck? And basically, we're just going to explain some real estate term every week for you, because like every business, we have our lingo, and sometimes lingo doesn't help the average person very much at all. So today's topic is, what are closing costs? What are they on the buyer side and seller side? Because I know I've had a lot of buyers, first-time buyers, get very confused by that. So Tracy, what are we expecting on the seller side of closing costs?
On the seller side, definitely number one would be commissions. They pay the buyer and seller's commission, credit for taxes, seller paid closing costs, title fee, and also owner's policy on that side.
Alicia, when we're writing a buyer's offer on a property and we put in those lovely seller paid closing costs, why don't you go into that? Because sometimes that gets confusing. Sometimes I've had buyers who say, wait, am I now paying commissions or what am I paying?
Right. So when a buyer goes to purchase a house, obviously they have to have their down payment. That's between them and the lender. Sometimes it's 3.5%, 5%, 10%, 20%. So the other thing that they have is closing costs. So sometimes that can get a little expensive for the buyer, and they like to ask the seller to contribute towards their closing costs. But those are absolutely the buyer closing costs. And what that is some taxes and insurance to set aside some future ones. It's usually about 9 months. They put it into an escrow account for you. Your broker fee, if your broker admin or your broker has an admin fee, which most brokerages do. A recording fee, which that's pretty minimal, the lender fees, and the closing fee. So buyers' closing costs usually cost about $4,500 to $5,500. So that's something that the buyers might need to have on top of their down payment when they go to purchase. Sometimes the sellers can help them out, but in a seller's market, it's less likely that they're going to help out all of it. They might help out with a little bit of it.
So our next segment is FireBytes. So we've kind of already talked about what a buyer can expect in a seller's market. So I want to talk about an issue that came up on actually one of my listings, which are nanny cams.
Yes.
So nanny cams or pet cams, you've got to be prepared because you're being videotaped when you're in that house. And as agents, we are becoming more and more aware of that. And how are we prepping our buyers when we're in those houses? Mark, what are you doing to kind of prep your folks?
I usually try to make sure that my buyers all know that I have their best interest in mind and everyone else doesn't. So anything that comes to financials, condition of the home, their opinion on the house, anything like that, I tell them, let's wait till we're off site to talk about that. We don't want to give the sellers any kind of fuel to use against us. Not saying that we're trying to hide anything from them, but we just want to make sure that our clients are being taken care of the best by us. So I just let them know, like, we can talk about details outside of here. Let's just look at the house and only keep everything to a minimum that we talk about inside that.
Exactly, because if we're giving that information away inside those doors and the seller already talking to their listing agent, say, hey, I think we have an offer coming in, and oh, they love the house, or they thought this needed to be fixed, or they thought this, you're giving away a big piece of our negotiating ability. So definitely something to keep your eyes out. And remember, it's not always just nanny cams. I know in my own house, we have a little pet cam for the dog that you can feed treats to, and I can see everything my kids do. So I'm sure I can see anything someone was walking through saying in my house. So when we're making offers on a buyer's side, how do you guys go about deciding, hey, is this really listed right? Is this listing agent trying to, make the most of the market and maybe stretch it a little bit? How are you going about gauging that? Because it is such a fast-paced market that we don't really always have the time to really analyze after we show a house. Are you guys prepping a lot beforehand and really knowing your numbers? Tracy?
Looking at comps, we, from the subdivision, we look up houses that are the same age, the same square footage. If it's been updated, based off of pictures. Pictures are a big thing. Another thing is sometimes pictures lie when you look at houses. They're not the same house when you go into them sometimes. So by looking at the pictures prior to, and then when we get there, we can kind of look and see what the difference is. But comparables of the market, of what's sold, what's active, what's under contract.
Right. Alicia, what do you think about, so I've had some buyers sometimes say, well, the comps over in this next door neighborhood, the next neighborhood over, are different, and I should be able to get more money off of this house. What do you think about that, how the neighborhoods affect where we're at in those prices?
Yeah, the neighborhoods definitely affect your home. So when you're in a certain subdivision, that might carry a lot more weight than the subdivision next door that might not be those move-up houses, So it really depends. I know that before I take buyers out at this point, because the market is so fast, I, one, am texting that listing agent, hey, is it available?
Right.
And two, I'm trying to look at the subdivision comps, because that's really what I'm gonna focus on is the subdivision. And if it's at the high end of the subdivision, which most are right now, at least, you let your people know, hey, this is at the higher end, and here's the homes that have sold in there. And sometimes the properties outside of the subdivision can carry some weight, but the subdivision really does carry a lot of the weight when it comes to that price.
Right, and I know with my buyers right now, if they send me a list of 5 or 6 houses and I know the top 2 that they're really wanting, that they're excited about, I definitely call those agents too, just like you, Alicia, and I talk to them. I try to get a relationship built with that agent before I even have shown that house, because I want to be the person that agent wants to work with, because that gives us an advantage on my buyer's side.
Yeah.
So our next topic is the seller sound off, getting ready to list. It's getting that springtime. People are getting kind of crazy, wanting to get everything ready. How far in advance would you guys like as listing agents for someone to contact you before they're ready to list? I mean, some people are like 2 days and they're like, hey, I want to list.
Yeah.
And then other people may be months. I mean, what's your optimal time frame, Mark?
Typically, I mean, I can get things done pretty quickly, but I typically would like at least a week, just because as a service that I provide, it's professional photography on every listing. So I want to get time to get my photographer out there, because I want to put your house on the market looking as good as possible. So I would like to be able to get a professional photographer out there and make sure that all the measurements are done correctly, so we have accurate information. That way we can get your house sold fast. So a week is good for me, and if you can go earlier than that, even better. We can prep it even more.
Right. Alicia, what do you think about that?
I think it completely depends on the seller, because I've had sellers that watch HGTV and you walk in and you're like, yes, everything's amazing. And then I've had some where they think they're ready and we have to have a conversation like, hey, you get one chance at a first impression. So to get the most, there's a couple of things that you need to do. So I would say it just depends on the seller. Yeah, and then if we can pre-market it, that's always great too.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, I really like to have 2 weeks, especially if they're also buying, because they're going to be contingent, and I want to make sure that I have all my ducks in a row for when they find their house, that either we're already listed and under contract, or all we got to do is push a button to be listed. So yeah, getting that professional photographer out there, getting all of our ducks in a row is always really important. And I think it benefits our sellers far better if we can have that prep time. So when sellers are getting ready and they're thinking upgrades, I know I had a couple at the open house, they were listing off all these upgrades they were going to do on their house. And their house was probably already close to the top of that neighborhood. And so I was kind of advising them, let's pick and choose some of those, because you're not going to get your value out of all of those. And they had like 100 projects they were thinking about doing, and I was like just overwhelmed by that. So Tracy, what upgrades are going to get the best return on investment? What are some of those that are just the top, where you're going to put the money out and you're going to get that money back?
Well, one would be garage door replacements. Those are about almost 100% of getting your money back. And also the outside, like entry doors, that is another big upgrade that can bring back money for sellers.
Right, and I don't think those are things that most of us just immediately would think about unless we've studied the market enough to know that those are great return on investments. Alicia, everyone wants to make that big kitchen upgrade. They think I'm going to put $30,000 into a kitchen and I'm going to get $35,000 in return. But what's the kind of go-to on kitchens upgrading at this point?
Right now, even the houses without upgraded kitchens are selling pretty good. But of course, everybody still loves the granite countertops. So if we put those in at a lower cost, that's great. You can redo the whole kitchen, but sometimes if you can salvage those cabinets and paint them, that's great right now too, because I've seen blue cabinets that look amazing, gray cabinets, and then my favorite is white, because I feel like white never goes out of style.
Yeah, I've seen some of those cabinets painted like a light gray and some different colors, and they're selling really good. My buyers are really excited about those kind of trims. But yeah, so more of a moderate kitchen upgrade pays you off better than that whole, I'm going to redo it like HGTV.
Yeah, it's definitely not necessary to spend a ton of money, not in this market.
So the other big topic that I think is always important when we're dealing as a listing agent is appraisals. Appraisals can be kind of a sticky situation sometimes. Sometimes they work out in our best interest just every day, all day, and then other days we might get a little bit of a problem. So, as a listing agent, for me, that appraisal process is one of the most critical things for me to be a part of, to show up to. And I know there's agents that don't do that. They just let the appraiser do their business. Tracy, what do you do?
I go out when the appraiser says they're gonna be there, I'm there, because that's my job for the seller. If that's my listing, I'm there to answer questions, help with the comps, because we want to get the best for our seller, and that's part of our job.
Absolutely. So, Alicia, years ago, the appraisal process was a little different than it is now. Can you kind of explain what that big change is? Because there's buyers that are coming in the market that did it, 15 years ago, and they're like, oh, well, the appraisal should be easy.
Yeah. Well, sometimes people think an appraiser is going to go out and do an inspection of the property. They're not. They are going to look for safety issues. But if you're hoping that they're going to find something and tell the sellers they have to fix it, don't bet on that. Ask for that in your inspection period. So there's that. But also, our prices are rising in this market. And so we really, as a listing agent, want you to be there to help the appraiser come to the right conclusion that, it is worth the value that it's listed at. So it definitely pays to have the listing agent there. And even sometimes if they can have comps to show the appraiser, which I know all of us always do, that helps too.
So a long time ago, appraisers, banks used to be able to come out, and lenders been able to kind of choose their appraisers, but that's not the case anymore. Mark, do you want to talk to that?
Yeah, I know that, especially with like VA and FHA, there's only certain people that do those appraisals. And so I like to show up to the appraisal process because they're human too. So they can miss something or make a mistake or not see something. And there's nothing wrong with that. Just being able to like, hey, did you catch this? Just be able to, let them know if something was missed. Because it's important, and that can make a deal fall apart. But just because it doesn't come back appraising isn't always a dead deal, though. You can talk to the appraiser, make sure that everything was covered, everything was checked, and so I think it's very important to go to those.
Absolutely. I know I've had listings where there have been a lot of upgrades done to a house, and I'll make sure I have all those upgrades, and sometimes even a spreadsheet of what those upgrades entail as far as price points. And I've had appraisers be so welcoming of those things. And then again, I'm a relationship person. I firmly believe, just like if I'm a buyer's agent and I'm calling a listing agent, I believe if you form a relationship with people, whether they're your clients or whether they're your colleagues, you're going to get more out of that. So building that rapport with those appraisers, I think, is beneficial too. I think it makes them, really work to try to make things right and good. So
I think one of the things that you were kind of talking about was back in the day, lenders were able to pick what appraisers went out.
right.
And now they go into a holding area where where the appraisers go out and pick which appraisals they do and do not have contact with the lenders.
Right.
Where back in the day, the lender could say, I need this house to come in at 150, and the appraiser would do it at 150. That's kind of where our market had issues back in 2008. We were selling houses for more than what they were worth, and that is not happening now. And
Right.
where buyers think, well, I'm paying 150 for this house, it's going to appraise for 150. Not necessarily is that happening nowadays.
Right. Absolutely. So now we're going to kind of do a little switch out here, and we're going to get Deb Brasel with Motto Mortgage up here for a little time.
Well, while we're waiting, I thought I'd invite everyone
Oh,
to
yeah,
our Homebuyers class that we're having next Tuesday, March 26th. It'll be here at the RE/MAX office in our training room from 6:30 to 8:30 next Tuesday night. We will have Motto Mortgage, we'll have our inspection guy, we'll even have credit law here to be able to talk to folks. So if they're having problems with their credit, they can get help with the credit law. And I think who else we're going to have there besides us?
Yeah, besides us. Hey.
But
Us.
hey, yeah, us.
That's what matters.
Yeah,
That's
what
important. But yeah, that's a great event. Even if you've bought before and you haven't bought in a few years, it's a great event to come and just ask questions and kind of, refamiliarize yourself with the process. So Yeah, please get out to see us.
And at the end of our podcast, we will have a place where you can go register if you want to come, because we like to know who all's coming, so that way we have plenty of refreshments, because we will have refreshments. But we don't want to stiff anybody on food or drinks.
All right, sounds great. All right, well, Deb Brasel, welcome to our podcast again.
Thank you.
Always good to see
Love
you.
to be here.
So today, we wanted to talk a little bit about, the buying fever starting. I'm sure you're getting busy just like us, now that the weather's cooperating.
Yeah, feels like spring's actually gonna happen.
Exactly. So I wanted to talk about this whole thing about buying versus renting. Because, there's a lot of people out there, especially I think in the millennial population, that thinks that they don't have what it takes to be able to buy.
Right.
Or they think that it's only pretend that renting is more expensive than buying. But I know I was looking at rental houses for a client of mine and literally was finding things at $1,500 a month that was like 1,000 square feet,
What would have been the value on that if you were to list it?
like 140. Yeah, they're not updated. They're just run of the mill. So I was just shocked at how, I think rents have probably went up significantly. I would bet 20% or so. And it's just, and it keeps, and I know my investors, they're buying stuff up because they're excited about renters. So if someone was like getting ready to buy, can you explain a little bit about if they're paying $1,200 in rent, what does that house look like that they could be purchasing instead?
Okay, I would say probably about 180. And it's not a one size fits all when you go out there to kind of figure out, you see a rate posted and you're on Zillow and it says your payment's XYZ. Problem with that is they don't include tax, insurance, and MI. So I've seen people make that mistake and then they were all bummed out because they were looking at a $275,000 house with a payment that was more like a 180, So 180 would probably be approximately 1,200 with everything included, principal, interest, tax, insurance, and MI.
Right.
And that's 3.5% down. That would be $5,950 that they would need to come up with. There's down payment assistance programs for people if they don't have down payment.
Right.
But that's pretty minimal. And usually we can coach somebody along really well to figure out how to come up with that.
Right. So it's, what are some of the tax benefits when it comes to buying versus renting, and how do those play into, what we should be explaining to clients?
Right. I tell you, it really starts to have the light bulb go on over somebody's head when we start talking about these things, because a lot of people don't understand the benefit of what they're getting when they're buying a house. Number one, it's yours. You can do whatever you want to. Nobody can tell you to move out. You can figure out when you want to make your payment, just don't go 30 days late. But tax advantages, to my knowledge, I'm not an accountant, but in the past, it was equal to about 2.5 months worth of payments. But I know the tax laws have changed, and I'm not sure exactly what that looks like at the moment, but it really is one of the last true tax deductions that we have. The other thing I'd like to explain to people, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that you could easily say conservatively that a value of a home is going to go up about 4 or 5% a year.
Probably Blue Springs Lease Summit area, it's up to at least 6%. Because I know I have clients that have been making significant amounts, turning their house they bought 2 years ago, and some of them have made $30,000 in 2 years.
Yes.
So yes, the way the market's going, it's better kind of than the stock market.
So when I take and I look at the bottom line, I'm like, okay, if it is truly 2.5 months worth of payments, that's quite a bit. But just even if you were buying at like 140 and you were getting a 4% increase annually, that's like $5,600 a year that you're putting back in your pocket, not a landlord's pocket.
Yeah, and those rents are going up.
Now divide that by 12 months, it's like $466 a month. Without your 2.5 months you're getting off on payments, if that still applies. Again, I'm sorry to be vague on that, but I know that's what it was before. So there's huge tax advantages.
Yeah, and just the thought of having something that's yours that can turn into cash money should you
decide to sell.
have something that comes up that you need. You can't get that rent back.
Absolutely.
So,
That's
those are important things to always think about. It truly is an investment.
Yes.
So now we're gonna go to Derek with Homestead Inspections. Now Derek told me I could call him anything I want,
Anything.
but I won't.
Appreciate it.
I will be nice, and I'll just ask Derek, Derek, what are you seeing right now in home inspections? Our weather is finally changing.
Yeah,
You can actually crawl up on roofs now.
Yes.
So what are the things that you're seeing that maybe a lot of sellers have neglected that are coming up on inspection reports?
Yeah, I think right now, like a big thing that we're seeing is drainage issues. We've had a lot of snow through the winter, so grounds are saturated. We've had some rain here recently, some more in areas than others. But what do our gutters look like? What do our downspouts look like? Are they full of debris after the winter and we've had a lot of snow and trees? We're seeing a lot of limbs and twigs and trees, branches on the roofs. We're seeing a lot of them falling down into the gutter. So getting down and cleaning some of that stuff up, just really making sure you're getting good free flow from the roof, because you don't want them overflowing your gutters. And then you're just asking more water to come back towards the house.
As we know in Missouri is a nightmare.
Absolutely, it is. And Alicia and I went out on a house today, and we were missing one of our downspouts. So all the water that's coming from the roof is going straight down to the gutter, or from the gutter to the foundation.
Yeah, right along the foundation.
And on the opposite side of the house, they just had the small kickouts at the bottom, those elbows, and so everything was draining towards the side of the house, and it was just negative grade towards the house. So, as we talk about becoming a buyer, one day you're going to be the seller. So when you're in the buying process, you're looking at what condition is the house in now. But when you're on the seller side, you're saying, how do I make this more attractive to my buyer? And taking care of the gutters, taking care of the poor grading and drainage, it's going to go a long ways for you. It'll pay off in the long run for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I think in all my inspections, even last summer, we're still grading issues.
Yep.
And I know when I take buyers out, that's one of the first things I always do when we're walking the exterior. I talk to them about grading issues too. So, yeah, because Missouri will get 17 inches of rain in 24 hours, it seems anymore, and all of a sudden every basement's flooded.
Yeah, and it's a constant thing you're working with as a homeowner. Just maintaining your property and making sure it's in good condition. You don't get to do it one year and then forget the rest of your homeownership. Right. It might be something you go out and check every year, every season, just to check and see where things are grading and the drainage is going to. If we get a heavy rain, take a look out in the backyard, peek out some of the windows and see where your water's running to. If it's pooling
Right.
somewhere, you might need to address that.
Yeah, I always think, once the snow's gone, go out, check your drainage areas, and then right before the snow hits again, at least get it twice a year. It's just an important factor. I think it's probably one of the most important factors. So, well, that will wrap up our Brasel broadcast number 2, and we can't wait to do number 3 next week. So thanks for joining us, and I'm Tricia Dygert, team leader for the Brasel Group.